You'll hate hearing this, but if you're a martial artist, you're probably already defeating yourself.
It's okay to lose to opponents, must not lose to fear!
With all kinds of ongoing injuries, lack of flexibility, and limited speed and power. But this training fixes all of it. You'll see why in a second, okay? And we use it for every discipline in sport, from jump rope to jiu-jitsu, and from sport karate to snowboarding. For kids, teens, adults up to 60s, plus those that don't even identify with chronological age anymore, and all abilities from beginner to black belt. Plus, I'll show you a few moves that'll tie it all together by the end of this presentation. Lee Weiland, Pacific Rim Athletics, creator of Powerbatics, and welcome to training.
How can I express myself totally and completely? Now, that way, you won't create a style, because style is a crystallization, you know? I mean, that way, it's a process.
And Powerbatics is our term for the 5 elements of bodyweight strength and skill, which will build a robust foundation for any martial artist, and any human being for that matter. I guarantee you it won't be easy though. If you thought martial arts training was hard, this will take you to a whole new level. And it starts with belief that it will work and the discipline to watch the end. If you don't have those 2 things, you won't go anywhere. That too is guaranteed. I'm gonna show you some cutting edge training sharper than the blade of a katana, so promise no falls, flops, or face plants, okay? But don't mistake videos for direct verbal guidance. Many fall prey to chronic and catastrophic injuries and frustration that way. Proper coaching and positive community will catapult you to progress you didn't realize was possible. And when you realize this, commit 100%, okay? Type 100 in the comments right now. My team of doctorates and elite coaches are constantly telling me about martial artists who enroll for training and the constant drumbeat of issues they're facing. Which of these sounds like you? They're throwing kicks and grappling, but they're walking around with hamstrings and hips as tight as violin string that's ready to snap if it hasn't already. And they've got all kinds of mobility issues, but they're doing strikes, katas, and even sparring, making things all the worse. And their backs are so stiff, they're ready to break like a board. Here's the one thing we need to address: mobility. There are 2 main subsets of human movement that nobody is talking about. And martial arts falls under one or perhaps both of these. The first is moving yourself. This applies to any form of bodyweight strength and skill, from running to hand balancing to flipping to forms and katas practiced in many martial arts disciplines and that we synthesize in Powerbatics. More on that in a second. The second is moving other things. This applies to anything from lifting furniture to lifting weights to kicking a soccer ball to wrestling, grappling, and fighting. Thus, martial arts actually falls under both subsets, moving yourself and moving other people. Just like circus performers also fall under both, which might include tumbling, moving yourself, or holding someone in a handstand, moving other people. Martial arts also adds a whole different dimension: human opposition. There's another human being or multiple human beings literally creating opposition, attacking you, trying to put you in a position of imbalance and lack of control. I call this the unpredictability variable. Now, back to mobility. Mobility is simply the combination of flexibility and strength. If you do not have a maximized combination of flexibility and strength, you will be in what I call the injury zone every single time you train, whether it's solo or against a sparring partner. Think of it like this: strength development happens quicker than flexibility. When you're stronger than you are flexible, you're in the injury zone, because every degree beyond your range of flexibility, you literally have 0 strength, so it's ready to snap. And when you're more flexible than you are strong, you're likewise in the injury zone, because you have no strength to maintain stability, and thus you likewise snap. Additionally, when you add speed and power for a kick, if you're tight, you pop. Same thing if someone is wrenching on your shoulder and grappling without flexibility. Pop. And if you're more flexible than strong, hyperextension and pop. See what I mean? What experiences with lack of mobility do you have? Please include those in the comments. And here's the solution to mobility and total body mastery for that matter. If you do not build the flexibility and strength simultaneously, like I'm going to show you, even if you practice over years or decades, it will actually make you tighter, chronically injured, and lead to feeling old down the line, when that's just a myth. As part of my martial arts training, which spanned a couple of decades worth, including competition for about 5 years, I remember learning the 540 kick. After achieving the 540 kick, my leg adductors hurt so bad I had to use my hands to lift my leg out of the car, but was fine in a day or two. It was painful because of the additional speed and power required, plus the volume of training I did. Thankfully, I already had a base of flexibility and strength, and my body adapted and recovered just fine. And now, even 5 decades into life, I could throw a 540 kick cold with no warm-up. And that kick is included in the power moves element of Powerbatics. One thing I teach is to have 3 times the amount of flexibility and strength that's required for any particular skill. And that leads to 10 times the amount for daily life, which happens naturally if you're training right. Like another example from my training where I would walk through the house and open the cupboard doors and turn on the lights with my feet so that I had good kicks. Or I'd walk around the house in a handstand. What happens is that most people train martial arts in a very compartmentalized way. For example, they might be doing jiu-jitsu, learning the moves, doing the grappling, and working towards their next belt rank. But unfortunately, they are not training their body itself as the vehicle it needs to be. They're not putting in the same level of training and intensity into achieving the requisite level of mobility, strength, and flexibility, which all comes together into total body mastery. In other words, when it comes to your own body, you might be getting a black belt in the martial art, but you're only a white belt in movement, and your body is gonna stop cooperating just like an unruly student at the dojo. The strategies we employ cover 4 different practices. Here's a training tactic you're probably not doing: static. This is the hardcore mind over matter training that everyone needs as a foundation for their body and brain. A favorite example is the horse stance. But all forms of static holds and all positions must be implemented. A key move is the handstand, the upper body equivalent of the horse stance, and everything else from human flags to bridges to muscle ups to a leg iron cross, which is why they are included in the handstand and ninja strength elements of Powerbatics. Now, this method will completely change the way you train. Dynamic. This includes the moves you do in the air with added speed and power. This will acutely test your base of flexibility and strength. A few examples might be aerials from the free run element of Powerbatics, or windmills from power moves element, or the 540 kick like I mentioned earlier, remember? And don't forget this pillar, striking. This is where speed, power, and force come together, involving impacts. You don't just go out there and hope for the best. That's how tears and breaks happen. You actually train for the impacts. This is where the jumps come in, hitting the heavy bag, landings generating 3 to 10 times body weight of force, hundreds of pounds of shock, striking the floor with hands and feet on handsprings, rebounds, and round-offs, which can generate 14 times body weight on impact. For me, that's over 2,000 pounds of force. This also includes punching, kicking, vaulting, flipping. It's like the acrobatics of Wushu and Shaolin that makes them vicious. I can tell you firsthand that when I tumble with high impact, I don't need any strength training. It's that powerful. And you won't believe how much this training will transform you. Ballistic. This is when you reverse directions using explosive redirection. You'll see this in Dyna combos, which are 2 to 5 move mini routines, and full katas from Powerbatics that, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, tie together all the moves. And then more advanced katas required for all 10 levels of each element. Each student who graduates to level 10 receives a samurai sword. It's something nice we do to acknowledge their rite of passage, just like Venny earned in his 50s, doing every flip in the book and every feat of strength you can think of. Can you imagine moving like that? Just starting with foundation and moving up from there. In fact, when you look at Shaolin monks or some of the best MMA fighters, and if you know me, you know I disagree with the traumatic brain injuries and other elements of MMA that leave them broken for life. But there's no doubt they're tremendous athletes, and the best and even most sustainable of them have the ability to windmill, corkscrew, and flip, just like countless warrior monks. Then you progress to hand balancing, then ninja strength, then power moves, then circ, then free run, which synthesize to form total body mastery. Which of these is your favorite? Put that in the comments. And it starts with simultaneous development of flexibility and strength, and then and only then adding speed and power, and eventually opposing forces like sparring. Remember this when you're training. It's vital if you want to continue doing what you love. And it's free to subscribe, just as it's free to opt in using the link. So do both now. If you do, you'll gain access to private live trainings I hold scheduled for email subscribers only. You'll also receive written email trainings, student stories, in-depth materials, and be able to connect with me and my team for official training. See you in the next video, and if this is at all clicking for you, then commit 100%. Schedule a time to talk, and we'll see you in training soon.